All right, cool. All right, so we are into week 9. We've covered our 8 weeks so far on our champion teaching maps. So this week and in 3 weeks after, for a total of 4, we'll be going through the life teaching map. So we're going to be covering the leave the BS behind in the L. Next week will be more investing in yourself, and then we'll follow it up with kind of forming your own beliefs and then kind of encouraging and elevating others. So again, this week, leave the BS behind. We're going to cover how to stay focused, quitting things that are wrong for you, and how to better deal with stress. So that's going to be a useful lesson for today. This is here of the Burnett Room, which is a bar restaurant in San Francisco next to the Stockton Tunnel. This is where I was working before I got my first job as a personal trainer at Equinox. At the time, I think I was working there for a couple months. It was just one of those like burnout jobs where you're just like picking up all the shifts and just working ridiculous hours. I was a barback there. So, as a barback, you don't really do much other than help the bartender set up the bar. And then you just constantly run back and forth and get all the supplies for the bar. And it's, a really like, people don't even know what like barbacks are. They just see someone like dressed in all black and they think it's the bartender they keep trying to order for them. So if you're ever at a bar and you're trying to order from somebody who's wearing all black and carrying like a bunch of stuff, it's probably the barback and they can't make drinks. That was me. So one of the problems with that was that they also took all my money. So I didn't make that much. So working long hours, not making a lot of money, eating in like staircases in between shifts, total chaos, right? But why I bring this up is because I was in the process of transitioning into the fitness industry. So you can imagine someone who's like really big in fitness, really big on eating healthy, is just surrounded by people who don't give a shit about fitness, don't care about their health, and are just drinking and just not really in a great environment for that, right? So it got to this point where I'm just like, I had to park at like this, across the street is this 24-hour parking lot. So I think as it goes later into the evening, you end up paying more and more and more and higher rates. So like all of my money basically got eaten by the parking. And then it just was the cycle of like, oh, work more hours and then like spend more money on parking just to get there. And then the alternative was like to take the 14 mission back to Daly City. So it was awful. There was no win scenario on this one. So I was getting to this breaking point where I was like, okay, I need to get rid of this job because it is going to destroy me. It is not in alignment with anything I want to do. I don't care about any of the people of this job. Like I'm not really contributing anything. It's just a total misalignment. So I go in and I talk with one of the restaurant managers because it's a bar and restaurant. Talk with the restaurant manager and I'm like, hey, like today's the last day, I got a job at Equinox. I'm gonna take the job at Equinox. I'm gonna get onboarded in the next like couple of weeks. I can't work here anymore. I gotta take this time to prepare for that transition. He's like, oh, this is amazing, cool. You get to finally do what you want to do. I'm really excited for you. He's super positive, really encouraging. Then I go to basically my direct manager, who's the bar manager, and I'm telling him like, hey, today's my last day. I got this other job. I'm gonna go do that. And he like basically throws a tantrum and like decides like not really to talk to me, but it's kind of being like childish about it. This dude's like in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. So it's like the bar is his life. And yeah, I get through the entire shift, with somebody hating you, which is always fun. And as we're closing up, bars take another 1 to 2 hours to close up because you have to wipe everything down, you have to clean everything up, and it's just a mess. Everyone just like, leaves stuff around. So we finally clean up. It's like around 3 a.m, and this dude's like holding on to my last paycheck to like lecture me about like not working in the industry again. And like if I ever try to find a job in the bars, like he's gonna like try to prevent me from getting another job. And I'm like, dude, I'm never working in a bar again. I don't care about your job. And like he could not fathom that his world outside of his world didn't mean anything to other people. And that's a really important concept to understand, that when you're in alignment with what you're doing, when you're working towards something and you're trying to break out of a certain area, you're going to have to rock the boat. You're going to upset some people. You're going to have to shift one model to another model. And in that transitional period, there's going to be some level of damage. Sometimes those people will not continue on into your life. They're just going to be like that one job that you had, and then all the people disappeared. but you have to be judicious in how you handle that. You want to be more like a Coast Guard rescuing someone and less about, Tom Hanks yelling at a ball in the middle of the ocean. You don't want to be like so scorched earth within the way that you handle that transition that you burn all of your contacts and become that person that no one wants to talk to. You want to be more strategic with it. So this reminds me of kind of a story that one of my Coast Guard friends told me. And he says that, when the Coast Guard, like these rescue divers, go to rescue somebody, if the person's flailing around and they're all crazy, they're taught to punch them in the face to like calm them down or knock them out so they can like wrap them up and carry them back into the helicopter into safety. Because if they're both flailing around, both people are going to drown because neither one can get saved at that point. So you got to be, sometimes the people in your life are going to flail around and they're going to be ridiculous and you can't help them. And then sometimes, you're going to be able to help some people. And sometimes you're going to be able to like actually be rescued out of that scenario with a plan. So you got to focus on the idea that in that transitional period, you're going to have to rock the boat a little bit. It's going to be a little uncomfortable. So why I was able to make that transition out of that space is because I was really focused on what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get into fitness. I knew the current situation was not going to define me and it wasn't going to be my end all be all. And I was moving to something better in the future, right? So there's a couple of tips that I wanted to kind of share with you guys about how to stay focused when you're making these decisions, when you're just working towards something. And one of them is you got to make fewer decisions. That kind of sounds like counterintuitive. What I mean by that is you need to be strategic with that plan that you're doing, and you need to keep the main thing the main thing. So if you're working on one thing, try not to commit to everything so your energy is all over the place. That creates kind of that brain fatigue and that choice overwhelm where you're just like, I can't make decisions anymore. If you've ever had to email more than 10 people in an hour, you kind of know what I'm talking about, where you're just like, I'm done, I'm out. You don't want to do it anymore, right? So you got to keep that laser focus and try to take breaks during that period as well. You want to, in an hour to an hour and a half, you want to take about 1 to 2 breaks. 5-10 minutes, just kind of get the blood flowing, get out of that state of just doing one thing, and then just kind of shift into your body just to keep yourself productive. The second part here is you really need to define your mission and your vision. This is kind of like the what and the why. You want to have intentionality behind your decision making and what you're working towards. You got to think about it in terms of what do I desire out of my life? Like, what am I working towards? How am I creating that? And ultimately, that's where the goals, the SMART goals, and the path and the time frames come into play. But if you don't know where you're going, it's going to be hard to get there. You have to have that intentionality behind that path that you're taking. And then the third thing is that when you're really focused on doing some deep work and developing and working towards something, your default response to almost everything is going to have to be no. Or say yes more slowly, but default no, because you don't want to put yourself in a scenario where you said yes to something that was pretty good, but it was at the wrong time because you're working on something else. So just ask yourself, is this really the right time for this right now? Sometimes those opportunities will come up again, and you can just place it on a different time frame. Oftentimes it's just the timing for right now is just not ideal for this, and you're going to have to navigate and prioritize that. So that kind of brings me to this famous "Oh, the places you'll go" quote. I kind of like this one, so I kind of included it. I'm just going to read it to you guys, but you'll look up and down streets, you'll look them over with care. About some you will say, I don't choose to go there. With your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not so good street. And you may not find any you'll want to go down. In that case, of course, you'll head straight out of town. And that is kind of the ethos and kind of the ideology that I had when I didn't really want to work there anymore. I was like, you know what? I got to get out of this place. It's really not good for me. So how do you really know when to quit something? And then what are some of the factors that help you with quitting something that isn't the right fit for you, or it's just straight up wrong for you? Well, one of the things you got to think about is just, you got to identify what makes you feel alive and what kind of brings you down. That's just a self-awareness. You got to tap into some of those feelings that you're having during those moments when you're going through what you're going through. Is it, just boring you out? Is it something you don't want to do? Is it making you miserable? notice those patterns, and if it's on a long enough timeline, is what you're working on really worth it? Because it's draining you consistently and it's taking all of your energy, and it's crushing you. So you got to ask the why behind a lot of those things. I was always asking why on a lot of different things that I've been doing, and you'll start to find out that sometimes people just do things and they have no understanding of why they're doing it, or why something's in place. They just, oh, that's the procedure that we follow because it's there. I'm just like, okay, that's a great reason to do something. It's not a good idea to just consistently do things because somebody said to do them. You have to understand the overarching pattern that's happening and how things fit in. And if someone can't really explain that to you, that's a big red flag. But the identifying what makes you feel alive versus boring and miserable, this kind of brings me back to one of my coworkers at my old company. He's one of my managers, and really talented guy, pretty much ran the company as like I want to say like junior CEO, even though he was just a senior product manager. And he was really talented at what he was doing, but the management kind of constantly cut him down to the point where they would like cut him down in front of people and like undercut any decision he made. He would say one thing and they would just say something else. So it created this disjointed thing that you couldn't follow it if you were, one of the subordinates. And it kind of ate at his psychology a little bit, and it made him feel like he couldn't make any decisions and whatever he did didn't matter. And if you're in a position like that, that's like the worst, most crippling thing that you can experience as a manager, because you want to have that agency and that authority and that power to be able to just make decisions. And when that's taken away from you, it's like, why are you even there, right? So a lot of companies just have that power struggle, and they like to just have people to just follow orders. But you got to figure out where you fit into that model and if that's a good model for you. So identify those patterns, feel through what makes you feel alive versus what's boring you and kind of draining your energy. The second part, when you're talking about quitting something, is think about it in terms of like building a legacy in the larger vision of your life. Like, what is the impact on other people? How are you serving people? And don't go by the normal metrics of success. A lot of those metrics of success will come when you serve people a lot, when you're helping other people accomplish something, learn something, get to some point, from some point to another point, go through a transformation, get some result. It's just a lot of us focus on that material success, and we lose sight of the actual impact we're having and our work is having on others. Also, how is this work allowing you to show up in your daily life? Are you performing better? Are you performing at your best? Are you in like the best version of yourself when you're in this role? And are you maximizing your skills? Very few people can say those things because in order to get to that point, it requires a really high degree of understanding of yourself and really understanding of what you're doing and contributing. And if you're in that role, that's great. That means you're working towards that. If you're not feeling that, it means you need to make a little bit of a shift and then just figure out how you can step into that next level. And the third thing here is you're going to have to realize that some people just aren't ready for that experience or that level of thought or that level of development that you're at. This is something I constantly struggle with. It's like you want to help people succeed. You want people to be on the same level as you, but they're just not there, right? You see this in the world of sports a lot where someone's really trying to mentor somebody and the person's just not getting it. This is the same way for some people won't understand the journey that you're on in terms of this building a legacy, in terms of having some forethought and organization to your life. They're going to just kind of bounce off of random things in their life and just, I don't know, why should I plan anything? Like, I remember having a roommate who was like, I was like, dude, do you ever plan out your day? Like, that's where all of your hours are going. And he's like, oh, why would I plan out a day? I know what's going to happen. I'm just like, no, you don't. And it's like, he had no idea what the hell was happening on a day-to-day basis. You can't recognize any patterns. There's just nothing there. But you're not going to be able to transfer all those skills that you have into that person's head. So you're going to have to avoid the scrubs, the crabs, the naysayers, all those negative people, the energy drainers. They're just not going to help you on this journey of transitioning from one space to another or just getting to that next level. In fact, they're going to hold you back. And just some people just aren't going to understand the journey that you're on. The journey of quitting something that somebody might that might be somebody's world. They might not understand how your decision of choosing something better affects them, or it even affects the service that you're trying to provide, right? People just don't see the larger vision, or sometimes outside of themselves, and it's just, you're not going to be able to explain that to everybody. But also, this is the harder part, is that sometimes these people who don't understand your journey and are negative, sometimes they're closer to us. Sometimes they're an old acquaintance or an old friend or a family member. And if that is the case, the quitting things is, mitigating that relationship is going to be a little more challenging. What you're going to have to do is realize that you can only go and have a certain type of relationship with that person. One of my friends kind of explained it to me really well. Like, you can only go this far with somebody, and then that's kind of the extent, and that's kind of like the box of the relationship, right? If you want to go and talk about these other things or have this deeper level of conversation or relationship, that's just not going to work with that person. So kind of knowing that can help you maintain that relationship, is just having those boundaries and those expectations internally that you know about, so that you can kind of frame the interaction so that you can continue that relationship. Or if you need to, you will have to cut ties if they're completely toxic and negative. So that's something you're going to have to consider. So the second takeaway here is you're going to have to take some risks when we're talking about just quitting something. You're basically saying no to something that for some can be really good, but that can prevent us from finding something that's really great. And I like this quote from this famous cartoon artist. I think she drew a bunch of stuff in like Freakonomics, and she had a couple of red books going on. But her quote is that, safe is often dangerous, and easy life is like quicksand. Before you know it, you're trapped and you can't move, can't breathe, can't get to anywhere you want to go. Don't coast unless you're rolling downhill on a bicycle. So it's kind of the idea that, when you're complacent, you're not improving. And then when you're not really on some deadlines, not trying to challenge yourself, you're just kind of coasting. So you really got to find those people that can support you, but also that idea of what actually resonates with you. And in that process, of trying to achieve, of trying to transition, there's going to be a degree of stress that you're going to have to deal with. That is part of the entire process of wanting to get somewhere from here. And let's just cover just kind of some ways on how to deal with that. So I came up with like 4 tips on how to do that. The first one is, a lot of times when we're dealing with stress, it comes from having false time crunches and then kind of this perceived level of importance. I remember when I was in commercial real estate, I would always get these brokers coming up to me like, oh, this is due tomorrow, I need this now, because they wanted to look good for the client, but their project was not really that important. They just came up with it yesterday, and there's all these other projects ahead of them. And, the managing partner has a project that takes priority over this guy who just might find one client versus, a really huge deal for this other person. So it's prioritizing to an extent, understanding how to do that, figuring out the kind of order of operations, so to speak. But it's also understanding that when people come to you with something, oftentimes it's a totally false time crunch. It needs to be done by a certain time so that that person can look good, but it's not really when it's due. It's just like, I'd like it by Wednesday, but I can get it on Saturday. It's like they don't really know when exactly they need it. They kind of throw out a time frame that works really well for their schedule, right? So in order to kind of be less stressed from the beginning, you have to recognize that it's kind of like that fear concept, the false evidence appearing real, that we're deciding to be stressed because of what we're focusing on. Our attention and what we're giving meaning to ultimately is why we're so stressed. Think about it this way. If you have a project that you're trying to complete that's going to show the boss that you're like a go-getter and you're going to get some attention and you're going to win the attention of the boss and maybe get that promotion, you're going to put all your effort into that. And then when it doesn't happen, you get all bummed out because you place so much importance into something that you thought meant a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it really didn't. Ultimately, what really does mean something is what we're contributing to help others, like the service that we're providing with other people, how we're helping others in And then the other part is that you got to think about it in terms of relationships you're building.
Okay lang yan.
Let's go with.
Yung OOS, kailangan pa.
Go with mute. All right, so you got to mute your mic here. I'm gonna mute it. There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay. So I'm on to kind of the idea that basically when we're talking about dealing with stress, it's the idea that most of it comes from that false time constraint and the perceived level of importance. But what really matters at the end of the day are the relationships you have with the people in your life. That's way more important than some of that work. And you have to kind of put that in the back of your mind when you're really stressed out at work. It's because you're giving so much meaning to the work that you're doing. But you have to remember, it's kind of like when I was at the bird room, like that whole world was that guy's world. But when you step out of the bar, like a lot of people don't care about the bar, right? So you have to keep that in mind, that even though whatever is important to you is really important, other people, it might not be as important, but ultimately it's the relationships we have that are more important. So the next part, I'd say, just to kind of reduce some of that stress and just better handle things, is to breathe more. This is something that we don't really think about, but when we get really stressed out, we stop breathing as much. We kind of do these short panic breaths of like not really deep inhales. And that comes from a lot of like mental tension. Whenever we have that mental tension, that degree of physical tension usually follows it. So you'll see this a lot of people who are really angry. They get all tensed up. They're kind of like they're really stiff. They have stiff movements. You can't really get out of your head through thinking. You have to get out of your head through your physical body. So movement, pattern recognition, like, okay, I'm really stressed. I got to get up. I got to do something. And that brings me to the pattern break part, which is, getting outside, taking those breaks, moving, exercising. Those are all great things because it allows us to get it back into our body and clear our mind. A lot of that pent up mental tension just comes from all of those thoughts accumulating. And if we don't have a way to release that, it just continues to build on that stress level. And the last part is just getting organized. This is something that we've seen time and time again, and we've talked about it throughout this program. But just getting organized really helps you stay on top of things because you have a plan. You know how you're going to handle something. You know how you're going to approach something. And just like time blocking, chunking, these are just things that on a longer timeline, we sometimes forget or fall off with. And I guarantee you, when you go back to a stressful moment or a stressful time, it oftentimes has something to do with a degree of planning that was missed or some level of just anticipating, milestones in a project. If you have enough planning involved in a project, you can always backwards plan. If you miss one milestone, you just go to the next one and you're still on track. But people don't think this way. They just feel like, oh, well, there's the A, there's the start line, and there's B, which is the finish line. It's like, no, there's like probably 8 or 10 or 20 mini checkpoints in there. If you don't hit those along the line, you're never going to get to the finish line. So chunking things, breaking things down, and just actually making time for things by getting organized is going to help you reduce some of that stress. And this is kind of like the common practice thing. The common knowledge is in common practice. So that's just a reminder of some of the things that we've covered. So it's kind of a quick chart I found, just kind of the stress curve, I like to call it here. So, too little stress measure all of this, even with like the perceived level exertion type of scale with like the fitness industry, it's all perceived, right? So with this, this is a good reminder to pay attention to how you're feeling in terms of your stress levels, that, after a certain point, stress does not become productive and it starts hindering your work. So when it starts hindering your work, that's when you need to check back in with your organization skills, where a lot of your time's going, and just going back to some of those things that we just talked about. So Eckhart Tolle is a great meditation kind of spiritual guru, and he's always talking about presence and just mindfulness. And he's talking about in this one, just kind of our third takeaway, is that stress is caused by being here, but wanting to be there. And that desire to always wanting to be somewhere, but not really being where we are, is one of the biggest things that causes a lot of stress, that causes a lot of angst. It's because we can't just be where we are. And think about this throughout your day. I mean, when I get to, or when I'm going to, or when I get there, then I'll be, right? And there's never, well, I'm here now and I'm happy, right? It starts with presence, and it starts with deciding, but it also starts with an understanding of where those feelings and emotions are coming from. So he says, in today's rush, we all think too much, seek too much, want too much, and forget the joy of just being. And it's a very, very hard thing to do, to just accept the fact that, okay, where I'm at right now is where I need to be, because I've put in all the work and I'm getting there. But right here, I'm going to learn something in this moment. I'm going to decide to show up, and I'm going to be mindful and intentional about how I'm showing up. And if you can do that consistently, you'll start winning more days, you'll start winning more weeks, and you'll start kind of turning the tide on that stress level. Stress is always going to be there, but it's just your perception of how you manage it ultimately determines how much weight you're going to give to it. Is it going to be a fleeting kind of thought that comes up, or is it going to be something that ruins your whole day? So that all comes from that mental game, right? So we've gone through the 8 steps of the champion lifestyle, as we've been talking about, and now we're into the next 4 of the champion life. Next week, we'll get into more about investing in yourself and some resources for how to do that. Again, we've gone from that kind of hamster wheel where we're just taking a bunch of action, not getting anywhere, and then we've raised our level of action. And now we're kind of noticing some patterns where we're seeing people take action, and now we've moved to taking a lot of action and then channeling that action and ambition towards a focus and moving towards that champion life. And now we're continuing that goal. Now we're outside of the map, really running with that idea and continuing the skill sets that we've learned and really putting them into practice so that we're living into that model. Again, week 9, leaving that BS behind. You're going to have to rock the boat, but don't burn the bridge. You want to be more strategic with how you're exiting one phase of life to the next phase, or just one opportunity to another opportunity. There's always going to be opportunities, so you always want to be on good terms with as many people as possible and just be intentional with your actions. Quitting things is going to require taking strategic risks. You're going to have to decide which street to go down, which people to spend your time with, and ultimately what you're going to focus on and what you're creating. And the last part is, stress is part of this process, and wanting and getting better. So it's the desire to want to get better that's ultimately, driving us to that increased productivity, but it's going to bring some stress along with it. And part of that is just learning how to handle that stress. So that is week number 9. Cool. We got people on. Hey, all right, cool. All right, so that's week 9. Just want to go through the presentation, but moving forward, I'll update up into the group, but what I would like everybody to get on the same page, and I'll kind of follow up with people who've already been through this, is the 7-day planner. This is in our group under the Files tab. I just uploaded a new version of it in the Facebook group. And why I want everybody on this planner is because this is going to be kind of the foundational product that everyone can use as a base to go through a lot of the skills that we have. If you had signed up for a race, if you had a race scheduled this year, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but just plan on it not happening this year, and just expect this whole thing is going to be a lot longer and a lot more intense than we expected. So just have your plan ready to go, continue your training, but know that your timeline's realistically going to be conservatively 2021. With that in mind, it means you're going to have to start thinking several months in advance with your training so that you don't fall off. Some of the resources online are good, some resources online are not. I wanted to find something in between that we can continue to build on. So I want to go over kind of this outline here for the Sunday planner, because it kind of continues a lot of what we've been doing, which is putting everything into practice. There's 7 days in this planner, and each day has a different focus where it's just one lesson, and there will be a corresponding app for each lesson. So you can see day 1 is time blocking. I'm going to give you guys access to this app here on Zimify. Let's see if it loads. Thanks to Wi-Fi, I'm sure it'll load eventually. And it's taking forever. It decides to load. I'll show you what it looks like. But basically, each lesson in here is going to be corresponding with the lesson in the, yep, there we go. Now we're good. Okay. It's going to be corresponding to the lesson here in the planner that I built out. So what it's going to look like is every day you're going to have kind of a lesson preview, kind of an over-the-shoulder training. So let's go into, like, say, day 1, for example. There will be like the overview lesson. There's going to be kind of the over-the-shoulder, and then there's going to be some mindset coaching just to keep you accountable moving through this program. Very quick, simple program, and this will start the foundation of what we'll be getting into, which is going to be, there's a assessment here just about how to get through some of your basic level fitness support and nutrition. Then we go into goals, and then we kind of pick the race you want to do, and then we actually plan a training plan around that, and then we go into actually gearing up for the race. So within this, it's all based off of the back end for the Beachbody resources, which I want to show you guys here. So within this is going to be any number of programs here, which is like over 30 programs you can get access to. This is how we're going to continue the weekly training since we can't use O2 anymore, but I'm going to add on to this some extra trainings that are specific to the obstacle racing technique. But as many of you know, within the technique, there's certain elements of just strength and muscular endurance that you need to build regardless of your skill level. And this is how we're going to continue that and build in that consistency and that routine, which is really paramount when we're talking about the long-term trajectory of getting ready for a potential race that might not happen until late this I'm just going to kind of log into my account real fast so I can show you what this looks like on the back end and why it's one of the more complete resources out there. Let's see, we're going to workouts. So there's not just the workout component. Database that, I mean, I used to work in production management for a wearable tech company, and it was just building anything close to this was ridiculously hard. But why I like it is because, like, say you're trying to even recover from a couple different workouts. There's some yoga built in here. We have just a lot of different resources that you can go through. Let's see if there's yeah, there it is. Yeah, so they have like yoga for athletes. There's some strength training, and this will be our base that we'll continue to check in on during the week, just as a good resource. So 14-day trial for that, and then there's additional fee when you commit to like the 3, 6, or 12 months. It ends up being like $100 for the entire year. Super affordable, just manageable. That way I can track that as you're going through the week. Because we're only meeting really 1 day of the week, even when we're at O2. So this now allows us to check in more often, but I want to kind of create that foundation with this 7-day planner first. I just want to kind of see where you guys are at on that. Let's stop sharing here and see any initial thoughts here where everybody's at, because I know we kind of all jumped in at random times. You can unmute now. We can't hear you. Okay, you are back now. Okay. So I don't know where you lost me or where you didn't. Yeah. Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So yeah. So that's so for Wendy and yeah. So everybody actually on this call is committed to the entire program, so I can kind of go through that. I think Sabrina's in the yeah, she's in the remote version. I've already talked with her about it. So basically, with how we're going to structure for the next 4 weeks is this upcoming week will be the 7-day planner. I'm going to go through what I have already built for the existing 9, 10, 11, and 12 workouts, which were a course run through. And I'm going to come through a version of that that we can do like on the trail. You can do solo and just make it more body weight so that you can go through some of those exercises and kind of create like a little bit of a trail run course simulation for the next 4 weeks. I think that's going to be a good middle ground for us. And then we'll drop everybody into that 7-day planner. Wendy, you've gone through it twice, so you don't have to go through that again. I'll send you some additional resources that I've been working on for the technique, and then I'll transfer that to some of the rest of the group as well. But that's kind of the focus. I just wanted a really easy way to transition from the lecture to the you know, workout resources, and then into some of the obstacle racing techniques. So I'm going to pepper that into the group and then into the challenge groups as well as we go through this. So right now it's just establishing the routines and that kind of fitness journey so that we can stack on top of it, but we need to get the base level down and get used to the platforms first. So.
Cool. And any chance we can talk you into doing some Zoom actual workouts? Because I've done a few this week and they actually work pretty well.
Yeah, we can try that. That's where I was going to post on the actual technique part of it for the like obstacle racing stuff, like the actual like grip strength or just some like small little like additions we can add on to it. So I'm going to pepper that in as well. I have to work through on how I'm going to frame that because it's like, all right, bucket, heavy rough. Yeah, like very simple stuff, right? So that's kind of what I want to focus on is things like that because I've done a few things like that in the past. It just becomes hard to like execute as you get deeper into some of the more technical things where you actually need equipment, right? So.
Yeah, and I guess I'll speak for myself, but my biggest concern is to really, I don't want to lose all of the strength that I've gained because a lot of the in-home workouts are just, you know, like do 10 squats, do 10 push-ups. But I can do that, but I feel like I'm going to back off from where I am quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know what suggestions you have about that.
Yeah. So I've done these programs, and the reason why I'm at the level I'm at is because that I've done them for an extended period of time. So that would be my initial response. They do involve weights. It just becomes like, you know, depends on how much equipment you have. But, you know, realistically, we're not going to be able to get together in like large groups for a very long time. So we have to kind of work with what we have. But there is a lot of strength training in this program. There's a full-on like bodybuilding program in this database, Body Beast specifically. I've done it. It's very hard. It's like hour-long workout that stacks a lot of like really complex movements on top of each other, and like you have to have like dumbbells and some actual weights with you. You can do the entire program and most of the programs on this workout database with a set of dumbbells. But just because we're not going super heavy, like think about even when we're at O2, like how many people use dumbbells over 50, right?
I sometimes use like 5.
Well,
sometimes.
But that's what I'm saying, right? I think the perception, right, is that I need a lot of equipment, right? And that's one of the things that I've had to deal with a little bit, is that that's not necessarily the case. It's just you have to get really technical with the way that you're programming it, right? And then it becomes like, okay, if I did this, and I shorten the breaks, like you can come up with some really intense workouts with, you know, weights that aren't above like 30 pounds, right? So that's mostly people are under 50 pounds in the dumbbells anyway. So like you can buy like the Bowflex adjustable thing in the dumbbells and you have like your entire gym pretty much in your living room. So that's what I found works really well, and then we can work really with that. So.
Nate,
Yeah, right
since you've been doing this for a really long time, would you be able to advise us on how to stack the workouts so that we continue
Yes.
to build muscle so we know what sort of workout to do on what day?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the planner, which is why I'm putting everybody through the planner, I go through how to choose the program. Specifically, if you have like a more specific targeted goal of like, I want to lose this or I want to gain this, then I can put you on a very specific program and a very specific kind of trajectory. But the idea is I have it for about 3 months planned out in that planner on how to choose the program. So the idea is we're going to be doing one of these programs for like the 60 to 90 day period, and then you're going to roll into the next program and then the next program. So it starts you off maybe with body weight, then we're moving to some dumbbells, then we're moving to some heavier, more intense workouts. In addition to that, there's a cardio piece on the back end with the programmed out kind of run plan on the back end. So we'll be running, 1 or 2 days a week or 3 days, maybe stacking the longer runs on your weekend. And then you're going through the program day by day as it's planned out. I'll be checking in with the Vivify app or, some version of an app like that. And then it's just about the checking in component and then figuring out like, okay, does this workout align with well, first of all, are you resonating with it? Is something that you actually want to do and it's aligning with your goals? And if not, we can course correct from there. So I'm going to put everybody on a trajectory, and then we'll make individual adjustments as we need to go through by just getting on a call and just making a course correct. It's a very simple, like, all right, jump out of one, jump into the next one. And that way it gives you a lot of flexibility. But then also, as you're going through it, you can also add additional things onto it as well. Like, okay, I did this one. I want to do some recovery for mobility. Cool, I dropped into this other program. Right?
If anyone happens to see dumbbells at the store, if you wouldn't mind picking them up, I'll buy them from you. Because right now, Amazon and Target and everywhere, they're all out.
Yeah. That's going to be a harder one to find. Like carrying dumbbells. Yeah, no, I'll continue to look for those. I'll see if I can find places that are still selling them. My buddy just bought like an entire gym off of somebody, like an entire garage gym. So there's definitely resources out there. I'll look into the network and see what I can find. But yeah, all we need are really some dumbbells. Like the interchangeable ones, like the Bowflex ones where you can change like up to 50. That's like the entirety of what you need for most of these programs. If you kind of have an idea of where you're at, you can probably go with like a 15 and like a 10 or 12 or something, or like a 25 and like a 10. It just depends on, what your goals are and where you're at. But ultimately, you're not gonna need a whole lot of equipment. So that's, I'll look at some of the resources out there and see where I can find who's selling what, because that's gonna be a little bit harder during this time.
Yeah, if anyone needs resistance bands, I seem to have just an ungodly number of resistance bands. I just have no dumbbells.
Okay, you can work with resistance bands. That'll work in the interim until you can find some dumbbells. So you just have to get a little bit more clever with some of the workouts. And there is on Lift 4, for example, which is a dumbbell and like body weight HIIT training workout. They have an entire modification where they refilm the entire program with resistance bands. So the entire program they have going through with resistance bands, you're just going to have to focus on a little bit more on form and then just a lot more reps within that small amount of time frame. So that's kind of the adjustment you have to make. Right? Cool. Let's see. Anybody else have any other initial questions? Yeah, I know Sabrina's on. I'm going to talk with her as well. Cool. Thomas, I like your backdrop. You've got the Golden Gate Bridge over there.
Yeah, I think.
Thomas, you're going to have to tell us how to do that.
I think Zoom just throws up like pick a background when you on your phone at least.
Really?
How do you do that? I can't find that function.
I gotta mess with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is
Microsoft has
really cool.
background blur, which is like pretty useful too. You see everyone's working from home situations.
That's great. That's perfect. I'm gonna get one with like a dancing bear or something behind me. That'd be great. Oh, that's funny. But how's everybody else holding up so far? Like, no one's going stir crazy yet. I've been trying to like keep everybody posted with various levels.
Yeah, I mean, being home for over a week, it's kind of a new reality, but everything's getting really organized. That's for sure.
Well, Thomas, if you ever want to go walk at the top of San Bruno Mountain, since it's right there, let me know.
Yeah, I might want to get out and do one of those trails.
I've been doing.
Is that where you're at now?
Yeah, that's where I'm usually up here 3 or 4 times a day, and then I have a route down Mission Street, which I started with. So this is my home away from home.
Nice. That's good. Okay. All right, cool. Well, that's pretty much all I had for today. I'll kind of do a quick recap I'm gonna record this. I'll do a quick recap in some of the groups and then the threads as well, just for people who couldn't make it. It's only a couple people, but as we go kind of through this and as we get deeper into it, just reach out directly if you have questions. One thing I will note, let me just find the mute button. Okay, there we go. One thing I will note is that in the planner, it does have a built-in sort of consult on day 2. So that's on purpose, just so that mute whatever's going on in the back. There we go. I will note on day 2 of your Sunday planner, there is a consult feature on there, because I want you guys to reach out directly to me so we can go through your goals individually. Because while I might pick a consistent group for everybody to start at, you might want something more advanced, or you might want something a little bit different. And within this platform, it allows a lot of flexibility. So just know that whatever type of group that we're in, it's more for the accountability piece, and you can just sub out the workout based on whatever your goal is. And that's kind of the intention there, is to have kind of a base program that everyone can decide to jump into, or we can just scale it so that you can pick the specific program that you want, right? Like, for example, Wendy, if you only have bands, we can drop you in the band program, but maybe Thomas has some dumbbells at home, and then maybe she wants to do more of like a strength-based program. So a lot of the programs will be kind of tailored to where we're at this point, but I'm going to add in some of that options for the customizability for each of you. So keep that in mind, and definitely make sure that as you're going through that, just to message me, and then we'll set up just individual calls so that we can get everybody on the right program, and just keep moving forward. Because I think one of the biggest things right now is people will fall off a little bit, and because they're not sure where to start. We want to get you into something.
Hey, you guys, check this out, a coyote. Coyote.
What? No way. Whoa. I think I know that.
Can you see it?
Too. I used to run that.
Yeah, can you see it? He's coming at me. Uh-oh. I think this one knows me, though. Okay, sorry to interrupt, but if I disappear,
okay.
You guys have.
I was on that trail and I saw a pheasant once. I was like, what is that? It's like a bright-colored bird that can't fly.
Yeah, this is the main trail, right. You know where I go. It's right near me.
Yeah.
Near you.
Yeah. That's
Hi, Coyote.
That's awesome.
Hi, Mr. Okay.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna turn around.
Yeah, it's like, go away from the coyote. Okay, so so like I was saying, just kind of reach out directly to me if you have a specific goal. I'm going to try to pick a kind of mid-level program that we can stack on, and you can always, as always, just add on extra things in addition to that. And I'll work on the some of the kind of ad-hoc kind of course combination of like a trail and then workout you can add on to this kind of model. So that's kind of the focus. Again, guys, thanks for jumping on. But that's pretty much it for our Sunday call. Pretty much all we're good on finance